Bonjour à tous, soyez les bienvenus. C'est beaucoup trop mou, encore. Voilà. Non, c'est pour que vous fassiez pas un claquage du bras quand arrivera le moment d'accueillir celui qui est l'un des invités d'honneur de cette 70e édition du Festival de Cannes, dont il a été le président du jury. Quentin Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, Palme d'Or cette année-là, avec Catherine Deneuve dans le jury, et Clint a été toujours un grand fidèle du Festival de Cannes, qui lui a remis une Palme d'Or d'honneur à Paris il y a quelques années. C'est dire qu'il fait partie de la famille et que quand Warner nous a proposé de montrer la copie restaurée d'Impitoyable, qui hier, ça a été une tourmente formidable de revoir ce film en salle de Bussy, on a dit on veut bien le montrer, on négocie quoi, on veut bien le montrer, mais il faut que le metteur en scène vienne. Et le metteur en scène est venu témoignant de son amitié, de sa fidélité pour le festival. Et je voudrais remercier très très fort la Warner, tout le staff de la Warner, son président, Kevin Sugihara, que vous pouvez applaudir. Stand up. Le chef de la production, Toby. Et le chef de Warner Home Video Belle Collection, Ron Sanders. Je voudrais aussi remercier cet homme qui est là et qui a fait beaucoup pour qu'on voit Clint Eastwood. Là, on parle des années 70. Parce que quand même, tu commences à avoir ton âge, Pierre. On parle des années 70, qui a fait beaucoup pour qu'on voit Clint Eastwood différemment. Qu'on passe de l'acteur au metteur en scène et du metteur en scène à quelqu'un qui allait devenir un maître. Il fallait le deviner avec les premiers films. Il fallait voir la filiation qu'il y avait entre Clint Eastwood et une certaine histoire hollywoodienne, des gens avec qui il a travaillé. Hier, on a montré un film dédié à Don Siegel et à Sergio Leone. Et à Lyon, lorsqu'il était venu présenter à un moment Le Bon, la Brute et le Truand, il commence une phrase en disant... Alors, à un moment, je disais à Sergio, et juste le début de cette phrase, on était tous tétanisés. Clint Eastwood nous raconte comment il était en train de parler à Sergio Leone. Bref, c'est une grande légende qu'on va accueillir, mais une légende active. Tous ceux qui ont vu Sully il y a quelques mois ont trouvé comme nous que c'était un film absolument formidable. Et que hier, il a annoncé qu'il a cru qu'Unforgiven serait peut-être son dernier western. Et puis tout à coup, il s'est dit, on ne sait pas. Et en effet, peut-être que Clint refera un western. Dans cette traditionnelle leçon de cinéma, la deuxième sera donnée mercredi par Alfonso Cuarón. Il y a toujours un journaliste qui vient faire la conversation avec l'artiste. Et ça me fait plaisir de l'accueillir parce que c'est un grand journaliste, un grand critique de cinéma du Los Angeles Times, quelqu'un qui est à Cannes, quelqu'un qui a fait beaucoup aussi pour l'écho. Todd McCarthy est là également, pour l'écho du Festival de Cannes à Hollywood, aux États-Unis. Je vous demande d'abord de l'accueillir lui. Kenneth Turan. Et très chaleureusement, Kenneth Turan. Pour une fois, vous applaudissez un critique.
Merci Thierry, merci.
Et je ne vais faire aucune présentation de qui il est, juste dire son nom et vous demander avec moi de l'accueillir chaleureusement. Clint Eastwood.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you. Hello, hola. Thank you. Thank you very much. You too. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Okay. Hello! Hello! Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Hey, Pierre. Nice. Merci beaucoup.
Vous referez pas ça pendant le truc. Parce que... Ok, messieurs,
Merci.
your turn.
Okay.
You want to get
Get a little closer,
more
maybe.
intimate.
Yeah, get a little closer.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to start. First of all, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad you're here. Yesterday, Unforgiven. I want to start with Unforgiven because it played yesterday. I understand you saw it again.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I thought I'd just sit through the first 5 minutes or something, but then after a while I thought, this isn't too bad. So maybe I'll stay for it. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Was it fun?
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it's been 25 years. I didn't realize it was that when it was suggested that it was going to be run here, but I thought because it only seems like about 6 or 8 years or something like that, but time flies. But I enjoyed watching it. I saw a lot of things that I've forgotten that were in it.
Anything you thought? Anyway, I'm curious about how you came across. I know the script, the David Peoples script for that. How did that come to you?
Well, it was given to me as a sample script for David Peoples' work. This was back in 1980. And it was given to me as a sample. They said, this guy's a wonderful writer. And I was looking for a wonderful writer on another project. And so I started reading it. And I liked it. And I said, boy, this is wonderful. Well, somebody else is doing it. And I said, okay, well, but we'll figure about we'll figure the writer for something else then. And it turns out that the script was available. And so I bought it, and our Warners bought it on my behalf, and I slipped it in a drawer. I said, this would be a great last Western for me, and I'd done quite a few Westerns up to that point. I said, this would be a great last one because of the nature of the story and the hauntedness of the man and everything. And then all of a sudden, about 10 years later, I woke up and said, Jesus, I've still got that in the drawer. So I took it out of the drawer, reread it, and liked it even more.
Right.
And I think I got thrown because I had a reader who worked for me who hated it.
Really?
Yeah, and she hated it, in fact, so much so that I actually had her critique of it framed on the wall in my office today.
Really?
Yeah. But I loved the script, and I enjoyed making the film very much. I had to talk a lot of people into it because Gene Hackman was going through a period where he didn't want to do anything violent. He decided he didn't want to do anything violent in the story. And I said, well, but this story is sort of anti that. And it tells about, the feelings that can happen when you're indulged in violence like that.
Yeah.
So, circumstances just work that way sometimes in your favor.
Yeah. Now, it was, one of the things about it, and I think it's something that's in a lot of your Westerns, you're not want to be the kind of classic hero, the guy on the white horse. You're kind of looking for something a little more interesting, I think.
That's what I was looking for in that, by all means, yeah. Yeah, the white horse day is, that's kind of gone.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of the things I want to ask you about it is that, and it's also something you do in some of your other films, the young actor that plays the guy who comes to get you.
Right.
He's a guy who, you found him and you he didn't have a big Hollywood career. He
was a young man from Canada.
Yeah.
And somebody sent me a tape of him, and I really liked him. I thought he had an interesting face. Yeah. And handled himself well, so I hired him. And then Morgan Freeman was a big fan of a film I had done earlier called The Outlaw Josie Wales. Yeah. And so he one day he was saying to me, God, if you ever want somebody to ride along with you, he said, think of me. And so I called him up when I had this, and I said, Morgan, would you like to ride along with me? He said, absolutely. And then I called Richard Harris, and he was down in the Bahamas somewhere. And he was, and he says, well, I'm down in the basement now watching the High Plains Drifter. And I said, what? So he thought I was somebody playing a joke on him.
Oh my God.
And then I said, well, look, I would like you to do this thing. And he says, great. I said, I'll send you the script. And he said, no, you don't have to send the script. I'm ready.
Wow. Yeah.
So we all, it just fell together like that, you know, some of those things like that.
You dedicated the film to kind of two of your mentors, to Sergio Leone and Don Siegel.
Yeah.
Can you talk about each of them? I mean, what was your first impression of them, and what did what did you get from them?
Well, I did quite a few films. I did the first 3 films that I had done outside of the series I was doing, other than small parts in films, and then a series in the early 60s. But when Sergio was a very interesting character. He had a different way of looking at the size and scope of films, and I learned a lot from him. Don Siegel was extremely efficient and put together. You know, he was faster than anybody I've ever seen.
Wow.
But it's because he thought faster. He didn't slough the shots, but he just his mind worked quickly. So they were my mentors. I was lucky to have known them.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had a lot of other good directors in the television series, because at that period of time, a lot of motion picture directors were doing TV in the early 60s that weren't popular anymore, or sort of out of vogue. And but people like Laszlo Benedict, really? And I forgot the name of the one fellow who did the picture with John Garfield and Lana Turner. Postman Always Rings Twice. Who was that, Pierre? Huh?
Tay Garnett.
Tay Garnett.
Tay Garnett. Yeah.
Tay Garnett. Excuse me. My accent is my fault. But these fellas were all really good directors and had done good things along the way. So I learned a lot. And then we also had a lot of directors who weren't terribly good. And I felt I learned just as much from them as I did. Because you always learn about what you wouldn't do if you had the opportunity.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So you know, you learn from everybody in life, and it's that way. You never overlook. You never get too ahead of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. There's a line I read that from Don Siegel that I think you like. I wanted to see if it resonated with you, where he used to say, "Analysis leads to paralysis."
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Analysis paralysis. Yeah, that's because he just didn't think he should just do it. He says, don't just talk about it all day long. Because a lot of times you get, if the director is not positive about where he's going, the whole crew becomes sedate.
Yeah,
and then nobody moves forward. Yeah. So it's important. But Don was a very, very efficient person, and he would keep everything going. Though he was a cantankerous person. You know, he hated producers, and he was always bitching about producers and such stuff. And he says he says, I don't know what a producer does. And I said, well, you know, they hire you, and they hire the actors, and they make sure the bills are paid and what have you. So there is a lot there, but he just always had that bee in his bonnet.
That's funny. What were you, even as a kid, a fan of Westerns? Is Western something that you liked when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think I grew up in the 30s and 40s, and Westerns were, every kid wanted to be in a Western. Every kid wanted to pack a gun and ride a horse. So as a kid, I liked them very much. And but you know, there was no television in those days, so everything, the movies were followed much closer.
Did you have the B Western stars? Did you have any favorite guys? Any guys you liked?
You know, I liked anything. I think for a while you liked anything, and then Gary Cooper and Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne and all those guys were good, but the other guys, Rod Cameron and people like that.
The B Western
Yeah,
guys.
B Westerns were fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think the genre is so resilient? People just always, they like Westerns then, they like Westerns now.
Yeah.
What is it that is the appeal?
I don't know. It's pure escapism, I think. Escape to a different time in history and fantasy kind of deals, and in a day when the law and order was all built around the individual and how well he took care of himself.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's a fantasy that we don't have anymore, and you can't have in an organized society.
Yeah. I know that you were, you were kind of a child of the Depression. Your parents had hard times. I wonder if you feel that that kind of left a mark on you, that made you aware of what's important in life and what isn't.
The what?
Of growing up in the Depression.
Yeah, it did. I was born when the Depression started, and but you didn't, up through 5, 6 years old, you didn't notice the difference, and you didn't know any different. The fact that they were starving, you didn't notice it. My sister and myself, they'd always make sure we had something, but they themselves were always on the edge. And so it didn't, but once you got up old enough to understand the times, then you realize how much you appreciate them, because they had to go through that. And we moved all the time. We'd lived in town 6 months.
Wow.
And moved. We lived in Sacramento 6 months, Redding 6 months, back to Sacramento, down to Pacific Palisades when there was nothing there, then back to, except the gas station my dad worked in. It was that kind of time. Everybody thinks this last recession was bad, but they don't know what it's like.
Wasn't like that. Wasn't like that. Did that mark you as a person in some way, having
Probably.
hard times? Yeah.
I mean, it makes you conscious of where you're going, what you're doing, what you're spending, what you're not spending, what can I afford it. You don't run up a big credit card thing, and sometimes it's rough to understand that you don't have to worry so much now.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was worrisome.
Yeah, it was hard times. How did you come to acting? How did this enter your life?
Acting?
Acting.
Well, I did a one-act play in junior high school as an assignment. The teacher, she was an English teacher, and but she was in charge of this play. And the kid was, the lead in the play was a kid, a young boy, who was retarded. I mean, not really retarded, but just dumb.
Yeah.
He was just, and she thought I was perfect casting. So anyway, I did the play, and it was so bad, the other two people that were in the play, we all decided we were going to cut school that day and not have to do it. We were petrified about getting up in front of the whole senior class and making fools out of ourselves. And finally, at the end, we all kind of gutted it out, got on the stage, and it was kind of a hit in a way, because it was so bad that it was funny, and it was supposed to be somewhat funny. So, but it was even funnier than it was supposed to be. So but afterwards, and people were coming up, other kids were coming up and saying, "Hey, that was good." And I said, "Yeah, but never ask me to do that again." And, so I didn't until sometime in the early '50s, after I was going to LA City College, and I got I started going to some acting classes in the evening, and because a friend of mine did, and there was a lot of nice-looking girls in the class, and so I thought, I better go down there and take a look. It was something not very professional, and anyway, I went down there and kind of got used to it and tried doing some improvisation and stuff, and I got a contract. A cinematographer named Irving Glassberg. I met him, and he was he was a guy who was interested in sports, and we got talking, and we said, what had done, and I said, well, I taught swimming in the Army for a couple of years, and that was a sport I liked very much. And he said, well, come on down, and we're finishing up the last day of this picture next week, and he said, I'll just run off a little bit of film on a Mitchell camera.
No kidding.
And so I came in at the end of the day and waited around about an hour or so, and then he just put me out there and asked a few questions. Kind of like we are now.
Yeah.
But I was nervous as a tick, but I was younger then, and it photographed all right. So I guess the guy said, "Okay, we'd like you to come to work for us." It amounted to about $75 a week.
Wow.
But you could buy something for that then.
Yeah.
And so I got a contract with Universal. I was there for about a year and a half. And then they threw me out.
Really?
Well, yeah. They got tired of the program, and they said it was too much, costing them too much, and they weren't using the people anymore, and they weren't making anything good at that time anyway. So, so I just kind of stumbled through the 50s, doing here to there bit parts and small parts, some of them on live TV, some of them on film TV, and once in a while bit parts in the movies. And then at the end of the 50s, in 1958, 59, I got a test for a CBS hour show called Rawhide, and I got the job. And so then I was employed and actually making a living as an actor. Yeah. And that was kind of like a dream for me.
Wow.
And I went for about 6 years, and then they asked me to. Then my agent, by that time I had an agent. Before that, I had a hard time finding one, but which was okay, I guess. But asked me if I wanted to go to Italy and make a Western, a remake of a Japanese film, and I said, no, I really don't. I said, I'm doing a Western now, and it's on TV every week. I said, and we have a little hiatus, and I'd just like to have a few days off, maybe go fishing or something. And so all of a sudden, I read the script. They asked me to read the script as a favor to the head of William Morris in Rome. And so I read the script, and I read it very negative. I said, no, this is going to be a piece of crap. And I read it, and I said, hey, this is Yojimbo. I remember that I was a big fan of Kurosawa's Yojimbo. And I thought, at the time I saw that, I thought that would make a great Western, but nobody would have nerve enough to do it, because it was so kind of wild.
Wild, yeah.
And I thought, gee, maybe I should do that. I've never been to Italy. Yeah. I've never been to Spain, and where we did a lot of the filming. So I went over there, and it was a very small picture. It was made for $200,000, I think.
Really? Wow.
And but it was good. And then I did the other two pictures every year. I did one of them, and then the next year. And by that time, Sergio had more money to put in the productions. And I made those, which were fantasy westerns. I mean, they were more operatic westerns than the others we grew up with. But very stylized, and Sergio had was great for picking faces. And, just looking at things a little different, working with a European director was good for me. Yeah. And I went back to the States and met Don and did a few films with him.
Why do you think, were you surprised that those Italian films took off the way they did?
Yeah, I didn't even know they were there. They were talking about, and this is an old story, so if it gets boring, everybody can take a breather. I just said, Don, when I did Yojimbo, I did those and they came out and they were stylized. I didn't know it was going to be a hit. It was made under the title of Magnifico Stranero. And so I didn't think about it. So and I'd read Variety, and they would say, Magnifico, such stranger picture is going nowhere. Westerns are out in Italy. and all this. So I said, oh, well, I make one and they're out. So, and then all of a sudden they started printing in with Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was the one I was in.
Oh, you didn't know?
Yeah, so it's a hit picture, and all of a sudden one day somebody put in there starring Clint Eastwood, and I'd never seen that before,
Wow.
except on television.
Yeah.
And I thought, this couldn't be the one. Yeah, it turned out to be it was. And start of everything. So there.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, the first, I think in '71, first film you directed,
Yeah.
Play Misty for Me.
Yeah.
You told me once a story about trying to convince Lou Wasserman to let you do it.
Yeah. Well, I'd done a few films for Universal, and they had done okay. And one day they had this film. I had bought Play Misty for Me, and then I'd gone off to England and made a film with Brian Hutton, and then I came back. And I said, you have this one here, and you kind of put it on a shelf. Can I do it? He said, sure. And I said, I'd like to direct it. And Lou Wasserman looked at me and he said, okay. And my agent was with me, and he was standing there. Our jaws were down to here. And he said, I said, I'd like to do it, and I'd like to direct it as well. He said, okay, and that's fine. And I said, gee, that was easy. So I asked my agent, as we're walking down the hallway, I said, this is fine. He didn't even resist anything. He said, no, but he did take me aside and says that he doesn't want to pay you anything. and I said, well, that's good. I shouldn't be paid. I should pay them for the experience. Yeah. And then after, if I pull it off, I'll be all right. But anyway, that's the old Depression mentality kind of worked for me at that time.
I wanted to ask you another film, that also I think the same year that also, kind of came out of nowhere to be very popular, which is Dirty Harry, the Dirty Harry movie. Did you know that? I mean, did you have it? Why did you want to? I'll start with that. Why did you want to do that film? What appealed to you about it?
I just liked it. I liked the script of it, and it was far out at that time, and so I brought it to Don, and he liked it. We both thought it was good. A lot of people thought it was politically incorrect. That was at the beginning of the era that we're in now, where everybody thinks it was politically correct, and we're killing ourselves by doing that. Yeah. But we lost our sense of humor and everything. But anyway, I made it. I thought it was interesting, and it was daring at the time, and that was the only reason. And big guns. It was an ultimate kid's dream.
Yeah. I just saw someone had a poster with just the big Magnum.
Yeah. Oh, big? Somebody here?
No.
Hey, look at that poster. That guy's been in trouble.
I mean, I think there were 5 of those films. Were you surprised that they became that popular? Again, like the Italian Westerns, they really took off, the Dirty Harry movies.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought Dirty Harry had a chance to do well, but it was either going to go okay or not at all.
Yeah.
So, but I thought that about almost everything I've done.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go at all, then you just have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you also because, as you know, I'm sure that there's a version Sofia Coppola is doing, Beguiled.
The what?
Beguiled.
Oh, The Beguiled, yeah.
Yeah. That was a little different kind of film for Don Siegel.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I had read the book and the script, and I brought it to Don. I said, "What do you think of this?" And of course, he loved it because he'd been head of a montage department, and he'd come up doing B movies and everything. He was, in fact, but he was always good at it, and he'd never had a chance to do something kind of on the offbeat side.
Yeah.
So he figured if it flopped, it would be my fault, and if it sold, it'd be his fault.
Do you have good memories of it? Was it an interesting film for you? Beguiled?
Beguiled?
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. In fact, that was the first film I ever went on a tour with.
Really?
And it wasn't a commercial film at all, but here in France, it was kind of regarded a little bit, and down in Italy, it was regarded a little bit, and it was little by little. people thought it was an interesting film, but commercially it was a flop. I met Mr. Vissiant and his cohort. They were salesmen, actually. They were campaign experts, and they liked the film. So that's how I got to France.
Okay. What, I know this is one that I'm curious about. You talk about unconventional roles. You co-starred with an orangutan in a movie.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was destined to be a terrible flop. Actually, it wasn't. I thought it would be commercial, but my agent, my lawyer, everybody tried to talk me out to doing it. They said, "You cannot do this film. You cannot do it. It's the worst thing in the world." But I'd done all the R-rated shoot 'em ups, and I thought, I got to do one that kids can go to. And people can take their families to. I've got to do a little bit of that stuff. So I wanted to try this one. No, you can't do it. You can't do it. I said, I'm going to do it. So we did it, and it turned out it sold like crazy. Everybody went for it. And then, so that started just in spreading out things. But commercially, it was successul. But the critics hated it. Everybody. I don't know how you felt.
I didn't review it. It's before my time.
Before your time.
But what was it like to act with an orangutan?
The orangutans are they're cute animals. And it was a fun thing. And we had Ruth Gordon, a lot of good people. We got to work with some good people, doing some interesting stuff. If you could do ridiculous things, it was like being back at that play when I was a kid in school. It was, you do a few ridiculous things, but the audience doesn't mind being ridiculous with you.
No, they enjoy it. They enjoy it. You know, one of my favorites of your films, which is a film people don't always talk about, I wanted to ask you your thoughts about Bronco Billy. I'm a big fan of that film.
That was another one that nobody thought too much of. But I felt it was very Capra-esque, and it was kind of, and Mr. Capra wasn't around to direct it, so I figured I'd do it myself. And a moderate commercial, not too commercial, but it did get nice responses in some areas, and I just thought there was a certain naivete about it that was great, fun to play, rather than playing the guy who's always gunning everybody down.
It's got a real charm to it.
Thank you.
What about, another film that seems unlikely on the face of it is Bridges of Madison County.
It was a lot of It was a book that it was a book that was odd, and a lot of it. I didn't the first read I didn't think that much of it, and then I started thinking, well, what happens if you made it? It's written as the man's story, and it starts the person up in Washington State, and the man goes and he runs across this woman and has a romance with her. But we thought that the actual story should be the woman's story, because she's the one that has the dilemma of the family and everything. And so we just took it from that angle, and so I thought, I'll take a try with that. So I called up, the guy called up Meryl Streep, and she said, well, I didn't like the book. And I said, well, take a check at this script, what we've done here. And then she called me back the next morning. She said, oh, I like this. I said, let's do it then.
Was it fun working with her?
Yeah, it was fun. It was okay. It was good. Sound like rat.
Now, a film that's much darker than Bridges of Madison County that I know came to Cannes, and you came with it, was Mystic River. Mystic River.
Yeah, thank you. I loved it. I read a notice on it, a review in the USA Today or one of these things. It was kind of a very positive review on the book, but they went into the detail of what the story was, and it just kind of hit me. I said, I got to get that. So I went down and got a book, I think at Costco or someplace, but and read it and loved it. So the next week we were starting production practically.
But I remember you told me that you had a hard time convincing Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was a little nervous.
They weren't too bad. At the beginning, I'm not sure, but once everybody read it, it was a really well-written book, and Dennis Lehane, and I just saw it well, and I'd been talking to Sean about doing projects, and when I gave it to him, he just said, bingo, he said, this is great, and everybody wanted to come on it right away. Yeah. So it was fun to do.
Yeah. I read that the cast often when, sometimes at night the cast would rehearse on their own. They would just get together.
Well, they asked me, they said, Sean said, and Tim and everybody, they said, would you mind if we rehearse on it? I said, no, rehearse all you want. Because when I'm shooting, sometimes we're rehearsing on film, and sometimes that works well. But the nature of the film, the nature of the characters, I think it helped them to run it. So I just told them, they just play with it, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
And we'll see. And I like to always shoot the first take. I always like to start right in shooting because I like to see what the mechanism is in their face when the first time it comes out of their mouth. And so it was very easy to shoot, very, very fun.
Yeah. You are known for, for not wanting to do a lot of takes. Is this true? Are you someone who...
No, that's a lie. It depends on, depends. I'm always trying for it, and this I learned from Don Siegel, is that I'm always trying for it in the first take. And he used to be a big advocate of that. He felt that, just see what happens, let it happen, instead of, a lot of directors want to come in and rehearse it. By the time you get to doing it, they're all bored with it. They just want to see what the mechanism is in their face the first time. So you really have to think through it.
Yeah.
And I think it works that way. A lot of people don't feel that way, but I still do that, But The $1 Million Baby and all the films that I've done that have some acting struggles in it, I just like to see how they come out as an improv. You can always go back and do tons of takes if you can't get it, and I have done it if it's not working. But if it's working, if it works on the first take, and you print it, everybody gets in that mood. They get, okay, this is where we're going. We're working. Yeah. We're going somewhere. So it's really good for actors, and that sometimes. It shocks them a little bit, but it's good for them.
It's a good experience. Let's talk a minute about $1 Million Baby. That's another tough subject matter, like Mystic River. Yeah. Did you always, was that an appeal to you at once? How did you?
Yeah, that was a wonderful script. I liked the script, and it even had a role for me in it. But it was a good story, and Hillary and Morgan, everybody was really, they were right on key, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not being objective, of course, but I was subjectively, it's okay.
They were good. They were good. Now, one of the unusual things you did was you did Letters from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers. You did Battle of Iwo Jima from both sides.
Right.
How did that come to you, and what was that experience like?
Well, I was reading books on Iwo Jima when we were doing Flags of the Fathers, and so I was reading all these books on it, and I kept reading, but this one general, Marine general, kept saying how interesting he thought how fiercely the Japanese fought on defending Iwo Jima, and how some of he was speaking in glowing terms of it. which I don't think we probably did at that time in the 40s. But so I started reading about it and reading about the Japanese side and what they do and how they were sent there, being told that they're not coming back. And I said, you wouldn't be able to sell that very well anywhere else. But I became a little bit infatuated with it. So when I went off to Iceland to shoot Iwo Jima, because Iwo Jima is a sacred place and they didn't want to film there, etc. So I had to go up there and use the black sands of Iceland.
Yeah.
But I started wondering, I started preparing this script. And the guy, I found a writer, a woman who had never written the script sold before, I don't think. And she did a really good job with it. So when I got up there, I was shooting scenes for both pictures.
Really?
Actually, yeah. Every once in a while, I'd tell the script supervisor, I'd say, just get this one and put this down for other picture. Just put other picture.
Huh.
And then we went, and at the end of that picture, I went right over and started preparing it. And I had a good script by then. And I loved doing that film. It had these actors, they all came over, they just spoke Japanese. I didn't speak any Japanese, but I had more fun with
Really?
Working with these people. Most of them were newcomers too, except a couple of more experienced actors.
Huh. No, it sounds like it was fun, actually.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It's my second winning of the LA Critics Award.
And I just wanted to skip to you have we're in France. I wanted to talk about France a little bit. Your next project is right about the train attack in France, is that?
Yeah, I've been flirting with the project. I thought that was interesting. The interesting situation in these strange times that we live in now. And so I'm fooling with that.
Yeah. Why you have such a connection with France? I mean, people really love your work here. Do you have, and they've have from the beginning, do you have any idea why that's true?
They're crazy. No, I love France, and I love the French people, and so it's always a pleasure to be here, and I've worked here before, and I look forward to working here again.
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to ask you some general questions about. I don't want to ask you something else. I want to ask you. You've been your films, as you said, you've been in Cannes a few times with films in competition, and it's. So you haven't won anything, but you seem to be okay with that. You don't seem to be angry.
You know, I've been on the jury too.
That's right. That's right.
And so I saw it from that point of view, and I can see why, because you get 6, 8, 10 people in a room, and they've all got different points of view, and so you have to kind of guide your way through it. There's no way everybody's going to agree, and so I was the president of the jury, along with who was
Catherine Deneuve.
Yes, Catherine Deneuve, right? Don't make any aspersions on that now. But anyway, we got to see all the films and get up every morning and see. And I don't know how anybody can choose those.
Yeah, it's hard.
There's so many things going on, and they had an Italian. I remember they had an Italian picture that was kind of popular. And they started off and they played the whole Combe concert. And they had a guy on a Vespa, and they did the whole Combe concert. And I thought, man, this director's got more nerve, because it's about a 12-minute piece.
Wow!
It just goes on and on and on. Keith Jarrett thing, and it was Keith Jarrett's least favorite album, but it was one of his most successful. And some guy had just fell in love with it. And I said, well, okay. And there's all kinds of different films, and finally. Then we'd choose something. I voted for one thing, and other people voted for others, and So I could see why we wouldn't win anything. And some of the ones I brought here, you know, I thought would be okay. I mean,
Yeah.
some people were thinking they might have a chance. But, you know, you go there and you have a good time and call it a day.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like anything.
yeah, it's a good philosophy.
Yeah, you have to do that, because if you take it so seriously, then you're taking yourself seriously, and that's the most dangerous thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah, wow. What, you know, you're one of the things, I want to ask you some general questions kind of for the end. You don't have a heavy hand with material. You're kind of restrained when you don't just pound stuff. When you work with screenplays, you tend to, you don't hit material too hard. Does that ring a bell, or maybe I'm imagining this?
Don't hit the...
Not a person, but when you work, you're not a heavy-handed director. You have kind of a light touch.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm not objective, of course, but I always hope that being an actor, I think, is an advantage for a director, because you know what the feelings of the other people are, and you know about the nervousness it can bring on and the lack thereof, and how to get over it, and it helps a little bit.
Yeah. And do you keep your sets calm? Are you at a very...
Yeah, I keep it. We were, most of the sets you have an assistant director running around yelling, quiet, and it turns out he's the only one making any noise. And I'd see this on other sets and on mine, and finally I said, I went to the White House. I think it was Gerald Ford, or I can't even remember who was president then, but it was, and I saw these Secret Service guys, and they'd sit there with a mic, and a thing, and they were talking while everybody else was talking, but you'd never heard them.
Huh.
And I said, why can't we, we're doing movies, why can't they do it like the Secret Service?
Yeah.
I mean, you can give the instructions, you don't have to do it out of a loudspeaker. Just give the instructions to the other guys, and don't let them get in the way of the scene.
Yeah.
So it worked out pretty good, and I've always done that ever since.
Do you ever get mad on the set?
I have on occasion, but you have to kind of control it, because if you do, you're only just defeating yourself.
Huh, it's interesting, yeah. And I know you like to, as much as possible, work with the same guys, the same crew. Is that a real advantage? Is that something that really you've learned is a good way to do things?
Yeah, it's just human nature. You work with people that you've worked with before who do a good job, and it just gives you a lot of confidence when your crew is really on with it. And we're working at a good clip, and everybody's feeling like they're getting something done. Then I think that's a good spirit to have.
Yeah. Now, you also, in terms of, some of your, you talk about trusting your gut. I know if you react to something, you believe in it. You don't second guess yourself.
Sometimes your brain, in my case, can be very dense, so your gut is really strong. And your inner self, your instincts are much better sometimes than your intellect. And so sometimes, if you have good luck with your instincts, you might as well stick with them. Yeah, because you start intellectualizing or pseudo-intellectualizing, and you can get yourself in a real box as far as you can just be putting out a dull thing.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at everything from a more objective point of view.
And film is, you feel the film is emotional, right? I mean, it's an art form.
Exactly.
Emotions are what's
It's an emotional art form. It's not an intellectual art form at all. I mean, maybe it is in some cases as far as the details, but your emotions that you get when you first read it, the emotions you got when you developed the script, the emotions you got when along the way, and you just transpose that to the actors, and the emotion you got when you first saw them play it.
Yeah.
And then that's the way it should be done, I think.
Yeah. And you're willing to fight for stuff that you want to do, even if other people, you don't say, oh, okay, if someone has an objection. If you like something, you want to go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But everyone doesn't do that.
Huh?
Everyone doesn't do that.
No, whatever. You know, you have to, everybody has their own style, and no one's right or no one's wrong. It's just whatever works for you. Some of the criticism I've given about other directors, actually, they've had good careers doing a different style.
Yeah, yeah.
And, some people, in the old days, it was William Wyler and a lot of people like that. It took forever doing things.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, forever is, I want to be back with Merrill again.
Forever's too long a time. Do you miss acting? You don't act?
Once in a while, but not often, no. I did a lot of it for a long time, and I'll visit it again someday.
Oh, good, good. What gets harder and what gets easier about directing after you've done it for a while?
I don't know what gets harder. It's just, you just have to be interested. If it's if it was material it was uninteresting, then it would be hard. But if it's material that's interesting, it's never hard.
Yeah.
It's great fun. But if you have to have the interest in it, and you have to enjoy watching other people work.
Yeah.
I guess as an actor, you could be envious that why am I not their coach? But I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
But if I was in the picture with a plot line, the last one I directed and was in was Gran Torino.
Gran Torino, yeah.
Which I enjoyed immensely because it was it was a way of dealing with racism by having an entertaining story.
Yeah, yeah.
And in relationships with people of different backgrounds and stuff. So what's a way to get a script like that has a little message that you like?
Yeah.
And yet you can still be the ornery bastard that you are.
What keeps you interested in directing? Why do you obviously you still are passionate about it. Why? How come you don't say enough? I'm not interested anymore.
You almost said it.
What?
I caught the F word coming out. No, it's just great. I mean, I just enjoy working.
Yeah.
You got to do something. I've always said, I like playing golf, but I don't want to have to play golf. I like doing it once in a while, but I don't want to have to go out there with some other old guys and every morning and go, okay, we're going to hit the ball. Christ,
Well, you're better off. You're better off. Now you have children who act, and I wonder if they ask you for advice, and if they do, what you tell them. Your children who are actors.
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell them just pay attention. Don't worry about meal penalties and all that stuff. Just do the best you can. Get in there. Because I've once in a while, one of them will come back, well, they work us overtime. And I said, do it. The more you work, the better it is going to be, and just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's like anything, you do it in repetition enough, and pretty soon you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then do something else.
Yeah, yeah. Do they listen to you?
No. Somewhat.
It's like everything. Are there any projects that got away that you wanted to do that just didn't happen?
I can't think of any really. I mean, I always feel that if what it's meant to be is meant to be. You make an attempt to get a certain property or something. If it doesn't come there, or if it doesn't work out, you just move on. And I don't think you have any regrets.
Well, you're better off without.
Yeah. There's always going to be something good eventually.
Yeah.
If you keep trying, you may come to Cannes 10 times, walk away loser.
What do you see? I mean, are there films that you've seen over the last few years that other people did that you've enjoyed, like directors you like? Anything that comes to mind?
You know, that's a tough question because I have seen so little films in
Really?
the last few years. Yeah, I mean, it's just been between Sniper and Sully, and you know, I've just been kind of going back to back almost, and so I haven't really sat down and just enjoyed other people's.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I run an old film or something like that.
What do you like to run?
I ran Sunset Boulevard. the other
Really?
night, yeah, because I like Billy Wilder and Double Indemnity and those, and a lot of his films were, and he did a lot of variety of films too, humorous and also tormented.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated his films, and you know, a lot of the older films I've loved to revisit.
Yeah, they're great. Some of the old films.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it.
You know, your story, you know, we talked about where you started from with your parents being so poor to ending up here, you know, do you ever allow yourself to step back and kind of reflect on the journey you've had?
Yeah,
What do you think when you do that?
I think maybe I shouldn't think. Maybe I should just enjoy it and say, you know, you've been lucky. It's an old saying in golf. I'd rather be lucky than good. But you know, it's you know, you need a good. You need to be lucky. I've been lucky a few times in my life, and it worked for me in other things. And it's you need to work like you put your nose to the grindstone, and then not be afraid to. If things don't work out, you know, keep going. And if things work out, I've been lucky enough to have things work out, and I'm still happy doing the profession. And when I'm not happy doing the profession, I won't be doing the profession. And so it's just, I like being in that position.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well, I think that's a good place to stop. I think we could stop there.
Anybody have anything else want to throw in? Or?
Now, is there anything you want to ask? Is there anything other films that I haven't mentioned that you want to talk about of your own?
Not really.
Well, why don't we stop?
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Clint. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Oh, that's me. They didn't want to take credit for it. Me jumping over a fence.
Oh, my God.
I don't do that now, and that was a few years ago.